our majors usually apply for jobs. They have a printed portfolio they'll submit in addition to their resume. Visual effects artists submit demo reels. So because we're making moving pictures, we'll usually submit a DVD, or these days Vimeo, YouTube, that sort of stuff. So the last time I applied for a job was in 2010. It was to get into Pixar, so what I brought was my demo reel at that time. So unfortunately, it doesn't have much Pixar stuff. I can paint a picture in your minds very clearly, though, don't worry, about the stuff that I've done at Pixar. But this is basically what I can figure out this mouse situation. This is what I submitted to Pixar to apply for work. So I make this work. So there's no fun sound on this, so I'm just going to talk my way through it. Basically, the way you order a demo reel in visual effects is your best stuff first, or most recent stuff first. They usually coincide. So on coming to Pixar, one of the most involved projects I'd worked with before, Avatar. At the time I applied to Pixar, I was currently working on Avatar. Because it hadn't been released yet, I couldn't show that footage. So this is what I had worked on up to that point. This Day the Earth Stood Still was a super terrific movie starring Keanu Reeves. In it, there's like this giant swarm of bugs. If anybody hasn't seen it, I hope you haven't. There's a giant swarm of bugs that eats a bunch of buildings and basically multiplies as it eats things. So I was sort of in charge of building up a system to simulate this crowd of bugs. So they said they wanted the reference for this to be similar to, flocking fish, or schools of fish, or starling birds. So these are some early tests that I sort of embarked on, writing some code that would simulate this in the computer, basically. So what these things are doing for each one of those dots, I've just given them some simple rules saying, okay, stay sort of close to your neighbor, head in generally the same direction as your neighbor, don't run into your neighbor. If you see something that looks super delicious and tasty, go grab it. And if as they're like attacking these buildings, the bugs basically divide and multiply. So this is kind of what it looks like behind the scenes, really. Like what all this stuff that we're going to be looking at represents about 8 months worth of work. So I'd write some code, and I would get something that looked like this, and I'm like, all right, this sort of kind of works. Let's scale it up a little bit. Here's how it might look moving through a city. So I kind of mocked some simple buildings and turned this thing loose through this little model, scale model that I made to see how it behaved. Sort of kind of working. Ultimately, in the movie, we were meant to put the bugs in New York City, so that's why I'm like testing the city scenarios. Adding more buildings just to make sure this thing kind of works right. At this point, I was sort of like, all right, the motion of this is looking okay, but they want these bugs to be metallic. They're supposed to be robotic bugs. And so I had to do some tests that we'll see in a moment about basically how to make those bugs look iridescent, like beetles have like a little bit of an iridescent kind of sheen to them. So this is me exploring the shading and lighting side of things to try to figure out how to make them look kind of iridescent. So here's kind of where I landed. So they like the fish sort of flash when they change direction quickly. That's sort of what I was gunning for. And then it was time to start putting it into shots. So one of the biggest shots we had to deal with was the destruction of this football stadium. So this is kind of some early tests of what that looked like. So I wasn't actually destroying the football stadium itself or modeling it or anything like that. I was just working on this giant herd of bugs. I don't know that anyone ever makes the choice to say, I want to be a specialist or I want to be a generalist. I have never made that choice. Mostly I let my appetite be my guide, and I'm like, I'm really interested in this. I want to keep doing it, or I'm not interested in this anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. At Pixar, clearly I've done a lot of water work. Water is sort of a peculiar problem in that it doesn't really have a good solution. Actually, nothing in visual effects has a good solution. Like if you imagine that, we just push the button to make an explosion or something like that, that's not really the case. Like, who remembers bullet time? Anyone? Oh my God. Some of you. Thank you. So from the first Matrix, the slow motion, jelly camera sort of slowly orbits around something like that. That was everywhere for a few years. Everyone wanted it until no one wanted it anymore. That's sort of true with visual effects. There's constantly this need to keep pushing things forward. So by the time anything gets super honed, people are done with it. And so we sort of constantly have new problems to solve, and that is what's interesting to me. So I don't know how to do this. I'm going to figure it out. So the water thing is an ill-defined problem that doesn't have a good solution, and to me it's interesting because it's hard to make it look right. It brings to bear a lot of like technical skills. I was a computer engineering major when I was here, though I picked up a second major in art, so I sort of straddle the line between being an artist and an engineer, sort of have technical chops, sort of have artistic chops, and I really like that. I like sort of sitting in between. And so water to me is like that problem. It doesn't look like water without the lights that affect it, the environment that it's reflecting. Contributes a lot to what water looks like. But it also has its own properties and tendencies, shading problems, foam, splashes, spray, all that sort of stuff. So to me, it's a meaty problem that I like thinking about. I guess that's, made me a little bit of a specialist, but mostly it's just the appetite to keep learning new stuff. At WETA, I got to a point where, like, not every show needs water. So I got to this cool point where I was just sort of like a dude who they would throw hard problems to, because I could kind of speak the artistic language and speak the technical language, and that was like a really comfortable place for me to be. I really enjoyed that. I don't know, is this sort of answering your question? Yeah, definitely. So I would say, like, if you're interested in pursuing this, just do what you're interested in, and trust that things will fall in the line for you beyond that, really. Like, yeah. So that's another interesting question. I find my own aesthetic, like, in my soul. I find the thing that resonates with me most is live action stuff. I just tend to like it a little bit better. The cartoony aesthetic is not something I naturally gravitate towards. Having said that, Pixar has interesting things, that they do, and it's always very pretty. Yeah, again, it's like, usually I'm asked to be a craftsman, and because I have so much live action experience, it's hard for me to abstract things very easily. Like, a lot of times, Pixar really exemplifies that, like, we don't need to look real, we just need to look believable, right? So, and if you watch the first Nemo, characters pop up and out of the water, but, like, there's never really any foam around them or any kind of water sheeting off of them. The kinds of things that would happen if you, like, push something up out of a water surface, the water surface doesn't move over it and break. There's all these things that would happen in real life that didn't happen. It's very believable. I guess there's some of that kind of stuff I haven't gotten to work on too terribly much of it just yet. But for my own part, like, I know I find the live action aesthetic more captivating.
I asked because